This video will cover vitamin B12 deficiency, which may lead to disorders of marrow production. To anchor ourselves, we have our trusty cobalt blue hat, which reminds us of cobalamin, another name for vitamin B12. Let's start with this cool toy fan this character has on his head. This toy fan represents phenytoin, because they sound similar, right? Phenytoin is a drug that is known for contributing to B12 deficiency. The crow on the roof is a symbol for Crohn's disease, which commonly affects the terminal ileum and impairs proper absorption of B12. Moving on to this clownfish, you see how it's holding a permanent marker? The fish represents pernicious anemia because doesn't he look a lot like a character named Nemo? And doesn't Nemo sound like anemia? Since he's holding a permanent marker, which sounds like pernicious, we can say this represents pernicious anemia, another common cause of vitamin B12 deficiency. But look, there's another fish in this image. This one has what looks like some tape around it. It represents Diphyllobothrium latum, also known as fish tapeworm, which is another way that vitamin B12 deficiency can happen. This is not just a normal restaurant, this is a vegan restaurant, and that represents the fact that strict veganism for a long time without B12 supplementation can lead to B12 deficiency, since animal products are rich in it. This restaurant claims that they do not use pans. I'm not sure what the reason is for that, but for us it represents that pancreatic insufficiency can lead to B12 deficiency. Another common cause of B12 deficiency is in post-gastrectomy patients. This deficiency may happen if proper supplementation and diet is not followed after surgery, since the stomach plays an important role in B12 absorption. This is represented by all the characters in this image being happy. None of them are hangry, which means they've already eaten at the restaurant. Them already having eaten at the restaurant will remind us of post-gastrectomy. For the gamers out there, did you ever play a game called Mega Man? Doesn't this character kind of look like him? This character represents megaloblastic anemia, which is a downstream effect of B12 deficiency. The character even has a clown Nemo fish on his hoodie to help us remember the anemia in megaloblastic anemia. You see that red egg? It represents ovalocytes, a common peripheral blood smear finding in these patients. And this cool red newt riding a Segway represents hypersegmented neutrophils, because neutrophils sound like newt, and hypersegmented is similar to Segway. The TV channel really sounds a lot like MCV, doesn't it? And it being at a really loud volume will help remind us of high MCV. Really impressive how everyone is just hanging out here despite all that lightning. The lightning will remind us of neurological deficits, which are potential long-term effects of untreated B12 deficiency. See that Hawaii 5 drink? Isn't the two-letter abbreviation for the state of Hawaii HI? Putting this together, HI plus the number 5, if it were in Roman numeral format, would spell HIV. HIV is another condition in which B12 levels are commonly low. Interestingly, there are a couple of conditions we will talk about here in which B12 tends to be falsely elevated. The first one is represented by this cobalt blue hippo eating all those beans, and it represents hepatic, which sounds like hippo, and renal disease, because kidneys look like beans, both of which commonly show falsely elevated B12 levels. The second condition to remember relates to those apples, which the hippo might go for after he's done with the beans. The apples represent myeloproliferative disease. Did you know that the Greek word for apple is mylo, or milos? And doesn't Milo sound like Milo? Since there are multiple apples, we can remember myeloproliferative diseases, which these commonly show falsely elevated B12 levels. Reaching the end here, we see this eel wrapped around a mallet, and it looks like the eel is trying to destroy the vacuum. Altogether, this reminds us of methylmalonic acid, which is elevated in these patients because it is not being converted to succinyl-CoA. Remember that methylmalonyl-CoA mutase is an enzyme that uses B12 as a cofactor, and if that cofactor is deficient, you will end up accumulating the substrate, which in this case is methylmalonic acid. We've reached the last prompt. Wow, that really was a lot. But this one's easy. That home looks pristine, doesn't it? And it's on top of a hill. This will help us remember elevated homocysteine in these patients. The homo in homocysteine is represented by the home, and the cysteine is represented by a pristine home. Since homocysteine is elevated in these patients, the home is elevated on a hill.